Hi all, welcome to webinar on Scrumban, best of both worlds, a fertile hybrid by using Scrum and Kanban. Before we start our webinar, let's have a short description of mine. I am Jay Srivastav, an Agile coach and trainer. I started my journey in IT 13 years back as software development consultant, currently working with Ejiveta Consultancy as principal consultant. So, what is Scrumban about? What is this Scrumban? I believe that now is the age of fusion, hybrid, mixing. There is fusion of music, fusion of fashion, fusion in food. People love bands with tabla, guitar with sitar. In India, even pizza got its local version or a hybrid form of chole pizza, paneer pizza, and chicken masala pizza. So, why not something in our agile methodologies too? I think that's why Scrumban is an attempt and getting popularity like any other agile methodologies. Some people says Scrumban is a combination. Some people says it's an application of Kanban method with Scrum support. Others says applying Kanban together with Scrum concept. What I believe is Scrumban is more on a evolution than revolution with pinch of Scrum and fist of Kanban or vice versa. Yes, I agree. It is highly influenced by Kanban model of work. In Scrumban, we may need to adapt some of the framework part by adding some things and subtracting few things. Along with Kanban, the same thing, adding few part of Kanban and not having some part, so that current process or framework will be more effective and promising for our requirement and also in particular environment and context. So before we go for Scrumban in detail, there is an extensive need of understanding the Scrum and Kanban for better understanding of the Scrumban. Next question is when we can use Scrumban. In maximum normal processes, it is very rare that what work has to be done or performed is very clear and normal in the starting itself. So I believe that from the starting, it's rarely possible that we get our requirement in the freeze form. We rarely get requirement which will not change, and things are not that smooth so that we can time box our work steps from the starting itself. So all these conditions are well sufficient to start the Scrumban because it provides certain features that is very much suitable for this kind of requirements. We can use Scrumban when uncertainty is a normal thing, normal course in the requirement generation and getting the work. We can use Scrumban for production support and maintenance, helpdesk support, and any project in which like there is a frequent requirement in the frequent changes in the requirement. Work like system integration, packaging, or deployment also we can use Scrumban. Another thing, if we are continuing with Scrum and we are facing problem with sprint duration, story leak out, software is not up to mark, management focus is on how to calculate the right velocity or how to tackle unexpected, there are various estimation deviation, then probably Scrumban is the best suitable practice to use in these kind of scenarios. And moreover, for all those people who want to learn and practice agile and lean, they can use Scrumban. So before we go for the further discussion on Scrumban, and since I'm saying that it's an hybrid, we need to learn about both the parents, the Scrum as well as the Kanban. So what is the Scrum? From where does it get its origination? get its origin. So for that, you can find the picture of two gentlemen, the Jeff Sutherland and the Ken Schauber. They are the person who, for the first time, presented Scrum in UPSLA conference in 1995. And they said, Scrum is a framework for developing and sustaining complex products. Scrum is a process framework that has been used to manage complex product development in early 90s. Scrum is most popular among all the agile methodologies, especially in software development. So let's discuss Scrum in brief from this picture. Scrum is not a process or a technique for building products. Rather, it is a framework within which we can employ various processes and techniques. Scrum is based upon three pillars, that is transparency, inspect and adapt. And these are very important for good Scrum in any project. In order to strengthen these pillars, Scrum has certain events like sprint planning, daily stand-up, sprint review, and sprint retrospectives. What is a sprint? A sprint is a fixed period or time duration in which a Scrum team develops the usable, potentially releasable product increment. A Scrum team are self-organized and cross-functional. The team model in a Scrum is designed to optimize the flexibility, creativity, and productivity as well. A Scrum team delivers products iteratively, incrementally, maximizing the opportunity for the feedback. A Scrum team consists of product owner, a Scrum master, and development team. Product owner is the person responsible for the product backlog, responsible for the maximizing the value of the product, and he is the owner of this product backlog, which is the set of requirement. Development team in Scrum, there is no title recognition. Like developer, designer, tester. Development team consists of professionals who do the work of delivering a potentially releasable increment of done product at the end of the each sprint. Scrum Master is the person responsible for ensuring Scrum is understood and enacted well. He also do this by ensuring that Scrum team adheres to the theory, practices and rules of the Scrum. I'm not going to discuss here the further detail of the Scrum Master as facilitator, enabler, servant leader, because believe me, it's a 2 full day class. So now let's go for understanding the flow of this diagram. The flow is like product owners own the product backlog, which is an ordered and prioritized list of requirements from which development team through sprint planning meeting generates sprint backlog, which is nothing but the subset of product backlog containing the requirements that has to be developed or generate product increment at the end of the sprint. For regular inspection and adaptation, team holds daily stand-up meeting at a fixed time and location. And at the end of the sprint, team of every sprint, at the end of every sprint, Scrum team along with the stakeholders do the sprint review to discuss about the product increment in accordance with the sprint goal. Finally, team conclude current sprint with sprint retrospective in which they discuss about what went well, what didn't went well, where they can improve. So sprint review is more on the product along with the stakeholder, while retrospective is more on the process among the team members. For maintaining the transparency and opportunity for inspection and adaptation, Scrum has three artifacts: the product backlog, the sprint backlog, and the burn down chart. Product backlog is nothing but ordered, prioritized single source of all the requirement related to the product, whereas sprint backlog is a subset of product backlog having requirement for the current sprint. And burn down chart is a graphical representation of undone work with respect to available time and a comparison with the standard flow. Now come to the second parent of Scrumban, that is Kanban. I think we have seen, like, this is the best possible way to explain Scrum in such a short duration and in a brief. Now let's move to Kanban, which I also called as a visual retreat, the second parent of the Scrum, from where second parent of Scrumban, from where it got its origin. So Kanban is being introduced as part of Lean initiative to morph the culture of the organization and encourage continuous improvement. And all credit goes to the gentleman on the current slide, Mr. Taichii Ohno. Toyota production system under the leadership of Mr. Ohno came up with a better engineering process for just-in-time delivery called the Kanban, which is a visual management concept for better communication. Kanban is a Japanese term for visual signal or card. Toyota line workers use Kanban to step in their manufacturing process, to signal the steps in their manufacturing process. The systems is highly visual in nature and allows team to communicate more easily on what work needed to be done and when something is required to be done. Now come to Kanban's journey to the software world. In 2007, Kanban was formulated by Mr. David J. Anderson as an approach to incremental evolutionary process and system change for software organizations. Now, as I said, this is a visual retreat, so I want to give some scientific background. What is the importance of the visual board in any process? A picture is worth 1,000 words, as already said. With many scientific reasons, as mentioned in this slide, you can imagine how fast our body responds to visuals than text. And on the basis of this, we can conclude the importance of visual signals over the text. There are set of practices defined for implementing these core properties, which are the visualize the workflow, limit work in progress, manage and measure workflow through lead time and the cycle time. These core properties through precise process and collaboration give a certain kind of very nice output in Kanban process. Now, how we can visualize the workflow? To make our workflow visual, we need to divide our work or split our work in such a way so that it can be put on the postcard size paper. Visualization can be achieved through the Kanban board. The very common and sample board is in this screen. You can see. So as I said, visualization in Kanban can be achieved through this board, which is the sample board, having to do, under development, under testing, under regression, and done columns. These are also known as work state. You can have your own board with your own column headings. This one is the most generalized kind of board. Kanban board with work items. So the same Kanban board, we can initiate our work by putting the work item in the first column. The work item will move from first column to other columns one by one. We cannot jump through, as we can see later. I will proceed it further. Second important thing after the visualization is the work in progress limit in the Kanban. Kanban is based on a very simple idea, that is work in progress, and work in progress should be in limit. Something new should be or can be started only when existing piece of work is delivered or pulled by the downstream function. So we can have this kind of board with WIP limit. As you can see here, there are these numeric 5, 3, 2, 3. These are WIP limit for every work state. What does that mean? Actually, work in limit is nothing but not more than these many work item can be handled by this column. So there cannot be more than 5 work items in to-do column. There cannot be more than 3 work item in under development column, because that is the maximum limit for this work state. So as I said, we cannot pull more than the limit of work item as with respect to that particular column. If work limit is 3, only 3 item can be pulled from the previous column. Now, measure and manage the workflow. The third practice, very important practice of Kanban, that is the measure of cycle time and the lead time. The question here is, what is lead time and what is the cycle time? People generally get confused very much among these two timings. So let me explain. The lead time is the time from when a request item is placed by the client or put on the board to when all work on this item is completed. So the total time client is waiting for an item to be delivered is the lead time. While the cycle time is the only amount of time that the team is spent working on that item. Therefore, the cycle time should start being measured when the item or task enters the to do column, not earlier than that. Work in progress, estimated time of arrival, and estimated time of finish are few ways mentioned on the card for managing and measuring the cycle time and the lead time. Not lead time, the cycle time, I would say. From any business perspective, very important thing, from any business perspective, it's clear that the improvement effort should be focused on the lead time, as cycle time can be manipulated or just changed by the process alone. But what client are perceiving is the lead time only, since they rarely have the access to the inner process and their clock start as soon as they give work to us. So that's why it is very important to manage the cycle time, to It's very important to have look on the lead time along with the. So for implementation decisions or planning decisions, we should focus on lead time as well as the cycle time for any Kanban process. From this picture, you can easily understand that the lead time starts as soon as from requirement gathering or as soon as you get the PO, and it will continue when the product goes back to the customer, the done product. So it's a start from the requirement gathering till we have the product back to the customer. While the cycle time is as soon as our work item comes inside the to-do list and under develop and then we are done reached to done state is the cycle time. Another very important factor about Kanban is the pull system at work. There is not any assignment of the work. There is not any assignment. As soon as the work is completed, another work is going to be pulled. So what actually is the pull? Method of controlling the flow of work by replacing only what has been completed through pull. Now from this picture, if I want to explain you, the resources are the seats of any train and the person who is going to sit or the passenger is the work. So in pull system, we only allow to enter those many passenger, whatever number of seats are there inside that train or bogie. What happened in push it system? How many this like irrespective of number of seats, they just allow the number any number of passenger inside the bogie. So this kind of difference, and you can feel the difference of inconvenience when you have push system and the kind of convenience with the pull system. This example is well understood to tell you the difference between the pull and the push. We can also understand the further benefits of pull as it reduces the wait time. It also eliminates the scheduling or assignment complexities. Those who all are there in scheduling job, they understand my point very well. If something is based upon the pull, how easy it will be for them. Increase the resource involvement and engagement. They have certain kind of peace in their mind. It allows decision making at appropriate level. It also allows to work exactly on what is needed. Improves communication through visual control, like when is the pull required, when it is not required, when the team is busy, all those things. It automatically generates balanced system of flow and work done, and ultimately it organizes the workplace, what I feel always. So there are many number of benefit of pull, which when you practice the Kanban you can realize it. Now see from the slide, like this is the basic Kanban board with WIP limit mentioned here under the work state. And since the pull capacity of under development work state is 3, at a time only 3 items can reside in this column. And as soon as this capacity of 3 is get matched, no further pull will be possible. Same thing is applicable for the work state under testing, which is having the capacity of 2. Means not more than 2 work item can reside in this column as soon as the capacity matched. No further pull will be allowed. So this is the way the work flows from left to right in our Kanban board based on the WIP limit. one important thing regarding the pull. From to do to under development or to do to development, priority plays a very important role. It won't be on the basis of the sequence. Priority is the major criteria which is applicable for pulling the work item from one column to another column. Even though we have work item 1 here, we are still pulling item 7, 4 and 9 previous to item number 1. That is based on the priority. You can see if star is telling us the priority, item number 7 and 4 is having the major priority here as compared to 9 and 1. So first we will pull these 3 work item and then probably we can move further on. So pull on the basis of priority, not on the basis of sequence, that we need to keep in our mind. Another important thing about the Kanban board is the pull system substate, that is ongoing and done state. In ongoing and done state, what all these states are? Under every work state, we always prescribe to mention ongoing and done state. Why? Because how this successive state will come to know whether this work item is done or not to get pulled. So unless we have this done state substate column, we will never come to know whether this item is done or not, unless, or we can just put certain stickers or green color or some marking levels whether it is done or not. In few teams they don't have this done column, rather they use certain kind of stickers to mark it as a done. If they put green sticker, means that the item is ready to move from ongoing development column to ongoing testing column. So just to have a clear cut understanding of like whether this work item is done or not, I always recommend people to have a certain substate of done column, and as soon as the item is done from this development ongoing column, it can be moved to the next column of done. Now it is very visible and clear that under testing column can pull these 2 items at any moment of time. Now they already have 2 items, so they cannot put. As soon as any one of them will move here, they will be eligible for getting the any one item from here to match their WIP limit. In this way, the inner state ongoing and done helps a lot for current team. Now move on to next slide. We have always this WIP limit matched to the ongoing column, not with the done column. We always, whatever number of items can come to the done column, but limit should only be applicable for this ongoing columns only. We cannot put any limit here on the done item. It's the duty of under testing work state resources to maintain this flow so that not much work get accumulated in this done column to maintain a smooth cadence or flow. Now another important thing is definition of done. Definition of done is nothing but wherever we have substates like ongoing and done, we need to have something so that it should be clearly understood when the task is ready to move from one state to another state or the done column. This is a criteria to be met in order to move any work item from one column to another column, or from ongoing column to done column, and from done column to another next ongoing column. So there are various advantages of Kanban. It provides the flow visibility, it provides the flow control, If there is any bottleneck or deadlock or tasks are getting accumulated, we can easily identify, because as we have visual way of identification of the workflow, we can easily manage our resources also, whether they are properly engaged or not, who all are free, whether we have workload in certain columns or certain work state. And since we have visual flow control and certain mechanism to see what exactly is the present state of work or the flow of work, there will be less need of storage or accumulation here, I can say. And indirectly we reduce the waste, different kind of waste in software, and ultimately we level or we lower down the cost of the development. So now, since we have discussed the two parents of Scrumban, now time has come for us to discuss about the Scrumban, which is a fertile hybrid of Kanban and Scrum. I'm using the word fertile because whenever we talk about any hybrid, we can get different kind of hybrids from two different parents, but whether that hybrid is useful or not, whether that hybrid is fertile or not, that we always want to check. And I want to say you that Scrumban is very useful. It's a worth hybrid, and that's why I always say Scrumban is a fertile hybrid. So let's see the working or application applicability of Scrumban and taking Kanban as base reference. So step one is start with your Kanban board and add product backlog to it. So basically we have this kind of Kanban board for our current team, and when we are going to implement Scrumban, we just add a product backlog to the current Kanban board. You can see we have backlog items, product backlog items or work items we can say, and these work items will further move on towards the right hand side direction. Product backlog in Scrumban is very similar as of the Scrum, as I have already discussed earlier. It will be ordered, prioritized list of requirement, and that product backlog is going to be owned by product owner of the team, Scrum team. There will not be any WIP limit. As many items as requirement will come, that will get added to the product backlog. There will not be any limit on this. Then we can prioritize these items. We can have requirement in the form of user stories or simple English, or in the form of task also. Estimation of the items can be done in the story points or man hours or t-shirt sizing, small, medium, large. It totally depends upon the team. If you are using user stories, you can have user story points. If you are using tasks, you can estimate in man hours. Or if when you are having a maintenance kind of backlog, you can use small, medium and large kind of thing for estimation. Now I'm taking a use case of product development for explaining my Scrumban. Another scenario can be, as I said, already said, it can be a maintenance work or what, like if requirements, it depends upon like how your requirements are and for which kind of requirement you are going to implement this is Scrumban. So mine, I'm taking it as a product development. So here for any product development, we can use product backlog for release planning. If we are using Scrumban for product development, and since we don't have proper sprint planning kind of thing here in Scrumban as do we have in Scrum, the starting point can be a release planning which can be planned for 2 to 6 months of release. Appropriate duration around, like for any release planning which should go okay with the Scrumban, can be 3 plus minus something around about 3 months, I would say. So if we are going to implement Scrumban for product development, we can start with release planning, and through a small release planning meeting we can generate a release product backlog. From the product backlog, it means that release product backlog can be a subset. Since we don't have a sprint planning meeting here in Scrumban, so I generally suggest to have a release planning meeting kind of thing and generate a small release product backlog out of the main product backlog. So it is nothing but a subset of the main product backlog. Through a small planning session, we can pull the work item from release product backlog to to-do list. Earlier I said we don't have to mention the WIP limit in to-do column, but in Scrumban, generally if you have release product backlog or product backlog, you just mention some WIP limit to be here. It is going to help you out. Otherwise, it just overcrowded, this column get overcrowded, and there will be lot of confusion which item need to be moved here. And then priority is again, prioritization is a hectic work if you don't mention this limit over here. So this is my recommendation, to have fixed number or limit your to do column also in Scrumban. Now, with a small planning, not a very descriptive one, we can choose the item from the release product backlog to move into this to do column. Since we don't have a sprint planning meeting, we always say in a Scrumban, planning on demand. No sprint planning is done to bring the item from release product backlog to to-do list. So based on the capacity of to-do list, the item from the release product backlog can be moved to to-do list on the basis of the priority, product owner choice or customer choice, as per the business requirement, or it can be also a technical requirement depending upon, like a technical requirement, like whether you want to have certain few things prior, like to have as a runway kind of thing to start and moving on the further item from product backlog to that, so that dependency factor you can handle at early as possible. So for that technical requirement, of course a small planning meeting is required here, but not as compared to a sprint planning meeting. You can see we have moved from product backlog item the 5 items, as our limit is 5 here, to do column. The next work state, we first progress with these two item here, and then further, as per the time, as per the work moves on, these item get move on to the right hand direction. As soon as we see that there are very few items in the to-do list, again call for planning will be there. I am repeating again, planning will be totally on demand. As soon as you see there are lesser item, you can demand for a planning or you can call for a planning, and then product backlog item can be moved from previous work state to the current work state. Now, post planning to do list, nothing much. As soon as your planning is done, you just selected certain items from this release product backlog to the main backlog, and current backlog is again satisfying your WIP limit, and it will look like this. One important thing is, every column I have mentioned definition of done. I always put emphasis on that, because unless you mention the definition of done for the requirement, how you are going to move your requirement towards the right hand side for each work state. So it's very much required to mention the definition of done for better understanding of the process. So please make a note. Always try to mention your definition of done with respect to the type of work you are performing here. If it is a development, then whether you want a unit testing, integration or regression part, or like how whatever you want to. If it is a testing column, you can have what kind of test you are going to perform on that backlog item. So all these you need to decide on a prior basis rather than ongoing one. One important thing I missed here is as soon as you see like more often planning call is there, like after every time, like within a small time duration, there is a call for planning again and again. So what you can do means your capability is much, these limits are much. So in that type time, what you can do, you can immediately increase your WIP limit for to do list so that planning meeting should be less. Next thing, very important again, if you at any moment of time you find that some, even though your WIP limit is saturating here and you have certain higher priority item in the release product backlog, so it is always recommended that replanning can be done at any moment of time and you can send these lower priority item back to the release product backlog and you can get a new item in the to-do list. Next important thing, if as soon as you see that there are many items in the done column, they are getting accumulated, that shows there now is the time for sprint, not a sprint, there is a time for review and retrospective. So again, since our planning meeting are based upon the demand on demand, so demand is there when we got more and more item accumulated in the final done work state. So this is the time for demo or time for retrospective also. Next important thing is the try age. So now this is very important part in Scrumban, that is known as the try age. What is exactly this try age in Scrumban? When you already spent 50% of time, means if you have release planning time of 3 months and you already spent 1.5 months or almost like 35 to 40 days, um, there is a need of try age, means remove those items from the release product backlog that you feel that it is hard to accomplish those backlog items, means remove the items which cannot be done in this release. So the process of removing those items is known as triage. In this sheet, you can see uh, initially we planned for 10 product backlog items, and finally we found that out of these out of these 10 items, 4 items we cannot continue for the current release. So we send those 4 items back to the product backlog, and this is known as the release, this is known as the tri-age. And then our release product backlog of post tri-age will look like this. Second important thing, as soon as your time get like 66% to 75%, like 3/4 time of your release planning, the release has already passed, then is the time when you do the feature freeze. What is feature freeze? Feature freeze is nothing that but no new item will be get added to your current board. We are not going to welcome any new requirement for our current planning or for our current work states. So post feature freeze, team shall not take any new item even if it's there in the to-do list. Means the I'll just show it to you. This line will get freeze. No item is going to move from this to-do list to further on. So this is the feature freeze list. In um, just a minute, I'll show you one more thing. Suppose you have, yeah, in Triage, what happens if this is your release product backlog and you have currently 4 items here, and after completion of 33% to 50% of your time, you realize that this product backlog item you cannot accomplish till this in this time frame. So removal of this product backlog item to back to the product backlog is known as Triage, and freezing this line is known as feature freeze. Means no new item is going to add for the current work or the current time frame. So now what happens after the feature freeze? There is a state which we call stabilization state, and or we can also call it as release stabilization. After the feature is freezing, only stabilization related changes shall be allowed. Means along with the normal course of work of moving from development to the testing, along with that only stabilization related changes will be done further, and our current Scrumban board will be converted into the stabilization board. Stabilization board, in the stabilization column there will not be a WIP limit. I'll show you in the next chart. Now in this to do there is no to do, rather we have stabilization issues here, and there is no WIP limit in this. So whatever stabilization related tasks will come, they are going to handle further, and all the team will is going to work upon those issues. Suppose we don't have any work in the development ongoing, so these resources are going to work on the stabilization issues, and here we can increase the work WIP limit of analysis, that we can handle more and more work here. So rather this limitations will, like this WIP limit will not be much applicable at this moment of time. So we have now discussed with the Scrumban flow, and now this is the diagram showing the overall flow of the Scrumban. We will start from the product backlog. We do a small release planning and generate a release product backlog. We start with a small release with a small planning to bring item from release product backlog to-do list. As soon as we have uh, work items in to-do list matching with the WIP limit of the to-do list, we start moving item to the work in progress or whatever the development or testing, like the whatever the flow, whatever the columns are there. And once we see like whether work done or not, we just check it out. Again, we see whether the item is in the done list. If yes, we move for the demo. If like a proper number of items get accommodated with like some limited or some numbers of item get accumulated in the done, we just go for the product demo. If we have certain kind of impediments in work in progress, Then we resolve those impediments and again move on the further. If we don't have any impediments, we will do the current process. Second thing, now we check, like, is there item in the done list? No, there is no item in the done list. Again we see items are present in the release product backlog. Yes. If there is no item in the release product backlog, what we will do? We will do the release stabilization, means we have enough number of items in the done column and we can have release demo. If we already have item in the release product backlog and we check whether we have completed our 3/4 time of the release time, if yes, then we will freeze the feature. If not, we'll check whether we are still in like less than half of the release time. Then probably we go for the triage and we remove all those items which we don't think we can complete in the current release. And in this way, we just move on and this cycle continues and we release and demo and delivery, and again we do the next release planning and move on. This way this Scrumban flow works. About the scaling of Scrumban, definitely we can scale the Scrumban. We can have, only thing is we can have single product backlog. One product backlog can cater the need of multiple Scrumban teams. Each Scrumban team will have their own board with their own separate requirements, with their own different WIP limits, and we can easily scale our Scrumban. Now, what is the size of the team? There is no definite. It's always recommended to have a small team. But if your strength is 10, you can go with 10. If your strength is 20, you can go with 20. Only thing is, on the basis of this, you can just manipulate your WIP limit. But I would always recommend the small team is the better team. A small board, I like a board with less number of to do or less number of WIP limit. It's easier to maintain and see the flow, because Kanban or Scrumban is always about maintaining the cadence and ultimately the lead time and the cycle time. So as long as you can manage the number, it's good enough, and it's totally upon the team to team. Now, can we implement Scrumban in distributed location? Can we have a distributed Scrumban? Definitely we can have a distributed Scrumban. Only thing is, again, we have master requirement list, out of which we can have two different product backlog based upon the on-site and off-site location. And on the basis of that, you can distribute your team and your work. Only thing is, communication should be good in the distributed. If you want to use any tool, you can use tool, but proper information exchange should be there, communication should be there, and then probably you can move on with the distributed Scrumban. So this is all about the Scrumban. I want to conclude about the Scrumban by saying that certain teams which are already doing a Scrum, they just incorporate the Kanban board within them and implementing WIP limit, and they say they are doing a Scrumban. That is perfectly fine if you are generating good value out of that. Certain teams, those who are doing Kanban, and they just incorporate release planning, they are not release planning, I would say they incorporate sprint planning, sprint review, retrospective, daily stand up. That is also fine. At the end of the day, our motive is to generate value to our customer. If you are accomplishing that, that can also be called as Scrumban. So now let's discuss about the questions. I am able to see few questions. Let me check it out, and then we can probably, after answering those questions, we can conclude our webinar. So now I can see there are few questions. First one is, how do you classify the work items limit as per complexity under the to-do list? How do you know if a work item is over limit under the same state, example ongoing? In this, I would say the WIP limit has nothing to do with the complexity of any task or user stories. As long as you have resource or resources to work upon that task, you can set your WIP limit according to that. Now, the second question is, I am new to Kanban. Where to get more details on Kanban? So, for getting the authentic details on Kanban, I would suggest you David J. Anderson website, that is djaa.com, where you can get more and more information through his blogs. And then probably many other resources are there on internet where you can just go and browse and see. Next question is, which are the best tool to handle Scrumban? In my opinion, if you are new to Scrumban, then probably it's always better to use your Kanban board and Excel sheet for that. Once you are familiar with the process, the practices, then I would recommend you Swift Kanban is one of the very nice tool, and it is going to help you a lot further. But initially, I would suggest please go with the spreadsheet. That will be very useful. So, guys, now since we are running out of time, so I need to close. Thanks for attending the webinar. Eduita Consultancy is continuously providing webinar throughout the month of December, September. So please check out the calendar and be aware of that. Thank you very much.